Salutations from space, aloha from Earth, and welcome back to the Arts of the Chart with your host and celestial navigator, Gemini Brett of More Than Astrology, Agent 1123 of the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. This is Chapter 4, Getting Directions. I'm recording on the 11th day of the second month we call February. Hey, numerologically speaking, what is the digital root of 11? Well, 1 plus 1 is 2. And 2 and 2 are 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 elements, 4 temperaments, 4 seasons, 4 winds, 4 corners, 4 directions. But first, a correction. I made a mistake in Chapter 3 when honoring that magical eclipse number of 108. The number that allows us to see here in the cross of matter of Earth with the human eye that soul and spirit are the same size. For on average, the moon is 108 moons from the Earth, and the sun is 108 suns from the Earth, and the sun is 108 Earth diameters in diameter. Well, in Chapter 3, I mentioned that the diameter of the moon is 1,080 miles. That's actually the moon's radius, so the diameter is twice that, or 2,160 miles, which very interestingly is the period in years transmitted by the ancients for one astrological age. 2,160 years for the age of Taurus, or the age of Aries, or the age of Pisces, or the age of Aquarius. Perhaps we see in this relationship between space and time that the mile and therefore the foot is not just some arbitrary distance. For more, I highly recommend the source of these slides, Cosmic Patterns, this video by the brilliant Randall Carlson of Sacred Geometry International. Okay, in Chapter 3, we checked out the eclipse magic of 108, and here in Chapter 4, it will be the eclipse magic of 400. For the moon is 400 times closer to Earth than the sun, and the sun is 400 times the size of the moon. Also why we can experience total eclipses. Now the sun is 432,000 miles in radius. Its diameter twice that, 864,000 miles. How about this link between those distances and time? There are 86,400 seconds in a day, or 43,200 seconds in half of a day. We'll be looking at 432 hertz when we address the musical harmony portion of the arts of the chart. But for now, 432,000 miles, the radius of the sun, divided by 400 is 1,080 miles, the radius of the moon. And 432,000 miles, the radius of the sun, divided by 108 is 4,000, the radius of the earth. Actually, that one is only 99% accurate. The radius of the earth, on average, is 3,960 miles. Later, we'll look at the moon-earth size relationship, 311, and see how that leads us to the solution for the sacred geometry challenge of squaring the circle. We'll also see how that's symbolized in the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is said to hold the answers to any question posed. But let's get back to Chapter 4. Again, 432,000 miles, the radius of the sun, when divided by that magical number 108, gives the radius of the earth, 4,000 miles. 99% accurate. The true radius of the earth on average is 3,960 miles, or 4,000 minus 40. 4 and 4. We're now 4 minutes and 44 seconds into this video, and I kid you not, this was the time on my clock when I opened my phone to record some chapter notes. Slide to unlock. Yes, I've been seeing 4s everywhere. Why? Because I've been tuned into finding the essence of the number 4 for this transmission. And isn't it the case that often when we're tuned into a number, we see it on the clock, we see it in geometries, we see it in patterns all around us? Are we just seeing it because we want to? Is this synchronicity? Is this manifestation? Well, I believe so, and I believe these number synchronicities that often first show up for us when we're tuning in are training for the manifestive gifts. I mean, 4s everywhere. And so is abundance. So is love. Now, clearly the number 4 is going to show up more than others. I mean, most buildings have 4 walls, right? That being said, many of them are intentionally aligned to help us get directions. This particular solar noon alignment is what most inspired the transmissions of this chapter. This church is on the principal plaza of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I went down there last week to see our moon man get married. Check out the sink in my hotel room. Synchronistic for a star man? Yeah, especially since I checked in on new moon. Now, finding 4s in church tiles is one thing, but I was assigned seat 4D for my flight back to the States. D is the 4th letter of the alphabet, right? Boarding class 4. And check out the airline's logo. Looks like we're ready to get directions. These days we draw the 4 with a cross, right? And the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit is the symbol for Earth. But let's see 3 a little more before we explore the cross and 4. On a recent storytelling tour, I stopped in La Jolla to share at this beautiful sanctuary called Trilogy. And the geometry of this sacred art reminded me to see the 4 inside the heart of 3. Remember how we saw 2 in 1? How the circle of spirit has both the holy and the spear? Fascinating to see it as this symbol here. Deep bow to Nassim for pointing that out. Remember how we saw the 3 in the 2? In the Vesica, when drawn as above, so below, there's these 3 different spaces. Now here's something to contemplate. How does the distance between the 2 centers relate to the radius of each of these circles? Have a go with your compass. That's your measuring tool, not the ruler. We're not allowed to use the dashed lines on a ruler, right? And you can probably see this one with your face, especially if we allow these radii to dance in space. The equilateral triangle, the 3, is hidden within the vesica, the 2. Later we'll see how that 3 is 4, and how the 2 of the vesica also shows 4, which is 8, which is 6. But right now, that just sounds ridiculous. We can get math sick pretty quick if we abandon the compass and draw only with rule. Lines are super cool. They open amazement, doors of perception into numbers of creation, but I find the curves actually offer a straighter way in. Did we jump the gun then when we brought the spear to the holy party in chapter 3? Should we have stayed curvy instead and rested in sanctuary? Clearly this figure is beautiful and imperative. It's been called the tripod of life. It's at the root of so many different sacred geometries, including Celtic knots and weaves and spirals. It is the trinity. And what's the sacred trinity of astrology? We could say circle of spirit, crescent of soul, and cross of matter. But most astrologers will agree it's sun, moon, and rising sign. Then again, what's the rising sign look like? It looks like the earth. Nothing is rising in the sky if you're not on planet. So we reflected as above, so below, adapting the circle of spirit into the crescent of soul, and the womb was created from which the earth was born. In the 4 directions, that's why we brought the spear to the holy party, to find these perpendicular lines, which you can't do without first creating the vesica. Now a cell might jump from 2 to 4, but we won't draw our way from spirit to seed without passing through the gate of 3. So from the vesica, we'll find the tripod, but in which direction do we draw? We could either create a 3rd circle at this intersection or at this intersection. Does it matter? Does it matter if I head to the left or to the right? Or towards the east or towards the west, and which is which? Well, I usually create in a sunwise direction, which looks like this in the northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, it's opposite. And it can go either way when you're between the tropics. Which brings me back to the topic of getting directions. I pushed the launch button of our space-time machine at 8:40 p.m. with 0 degrees, 4 minutes Libra on the rise. Why? Well, I could utilize the astrological rules to describe the many beautiful planetary alignments of this time, but that's not what we came here to do. Before we work with equations of the stars, the Arts of the Chart Quadrivium quest will take us into a sentient understanding of their proofs. You know I like to begin with number games. Is that why I chose 8:40 p.m. to talk about Chapter 4 with 0 degrees and 4 minutes Libra on the rise? Actually, that was just this amazing synchronicity. Because what I was really going for was an equinox degree rising. When one equinox point is rising, the other is setting. These moments come our way twice a day, and they're the only 2 times when the zodiac aligns perfectly to Earth's cardinal directions, the cross of 4, which of course is 2 2s. So I've decided to split Chapter 4 into 2 parts. Next time, in Part B, or below, we'll explore the marriage of heaven and earth astronomically. But we'll finish Part A today by looking from above. Let's blast off into that space from our sacred geometry launch pad. Into the cosmos we go, to the heavens, the perfect form, the sphere, the goddess, or was it the all? Symbolized on a plane of 2 dimensions by the circle of spirit, great mystery itself. And how mysterious! What is the length of the circumference of a circle? It's unknowable. It's mysterious. Remember this from school? We can measure the diameter. And the circumference is that diameter times pi. But pi, this irrational number, 3.14 ... and many of those dots have been sorted out in modern times, but no repetition has been found and no ending is in sight. They call it irrational. Maybe we can call it mysterious. Great mystery, the circle of spirit. One of our quests will be to find the center of the circle if we don't know it, if we didn't start from source as we have in previous chapters. Well, what is the center of the cosmos? What is the center of all? You, your heart. And we'll figure this out geometrically in the drawing extensions. So what I'm going to do, just because I know not all of you want to draw along, is to create additions to these chapters that are drawn out extensions. We're also going to add an interview series to the Arts of the Chart, that coming your way soon. But for now, let's start with a shape that we found our way to in Chapter 3. As above, so below, the womb of creation, the vesica, the mandorla, holding earth, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. Earth, which later we'll see, was symbolized by some of the mystery schools of old by this 3-dimensional shape, the cube. But we won't find our way there until we get down with the 6, which I'm very much looking forward to. This is a piece of wood from my first sacred geometry teacher, a hexagonal room on Whidbey Island, Washington. Yes, that's weird. Now let's talk about the square. You can see it here. And the square has mystery as well, which we will see in the drawing extensions course. Let's draw on the square that clearly we can see in the grand cross within the circle of spirit. The next thing we're going to do here is introduce the concept of flowering in geometry, one that we will use often. We've got the above and below. What about the within and without? Or if this perhaps was north and south, what about the east and west? And so we've got this circle and this circle drawn in. Let's draw from these intersections of square and inner circle. And our 2 will become 4. 2 2s. And we can see once the 4 is in, not only this beautiful shape, this 4-petaled flower, which we do see in nature, and number is nature, but we see some other squares that we could draw in. And now we see the 4 makes 8. Through the practice of flowering, we find these fractal squares, and we could go endlessly in either direction. But now we will create the womb left to right, which could either be east to west or west to east, depending on which hemisphere you reside in. And that's what chapter 4b or below will really focus on when we dig into the astronomy. But now we're going to look into some symbols for the above and below. So here we have the vesica, the mandorla, the womb. I'm going to connect the line of centers as we did in the last chapter. But now instead of connecting the vesica line, I'm going to draw in these equilateral triangles, one above. And the alchemists called this the blade, the equilateral triangle pointing up, and one below, the chalice, the triangle pointing down. The blade, up and out, evolution. The chalice, down and in, involution. The light and the darkness. So here we see another beautiful expression of the not two, which each contribute in their own ways to the 4 directions of Earth, which will come through as the rise, the reach, the rest, and the roots in part 2 of chapter 4, part B, below, where we will get directions from these 4 R's astronomically, and I'll share my current connections to the 3rd piece of the astrological trilogy, the rising sign, and explain why I'm fond of saying, what was rising when you rose is rising within you, and you are here to raise it up. But I think we've had enough to drink from the Astrology cup today. Your drawing mission, should you choose to accept it, is to create the square within the eye and the 4-petaled flower, and to flower out from there to see the strange relationships between the fractal squares. Also, draw the chalice and the blade from the vertical vesica, and contemplate their symbolic reflections of above and below, within and without, the sacred marriage of the not two. In the drawn-out extension exercises for this chapter, we'll create this compass rose and see how the octagram within reveals 2 of the many sacred relationships between Earth and Mercury, the true teacher within the arts of the chart. We'll also learn how to find the center of a circle when it is unknown, learn how to draw a square from scratch, and we'll do a little math to find the sacred creation numbers of root 2, root 3, and root 5 within the womb. By the way, I plan to post the drawn-out extensions on my Gemini Brett YouTube page rather than on the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's. All Arts of the Chart journeys will be posted on the playlist shown here and linked in the description sections below. I'm super stoked to announce I've confirmed an interview with an amazing geometer that I plan to share on the playlist when Mercury is Cazimi in a couple weeks. What does Cazimi mean? We'll get there. We're getting there. We are on our way. The Arts of the Chart is designed to subtly take us through a sentient experience of the proofs before we introduce the astrological equations and rules. Just draw and keep the faith. One more homework mission, if you choose to accept it, is this. Pick a number, any number. Reintroduce yourself to its mysteries by asking that number to be a teacher, a guide for a week or two. Then pay specific attention to the times when that number shows up in your day to day. Trust your thoughts and your feelings in those moments and follow their way. Such strategies of shamanic self-initiation will gradually be introduced as we follow this course of the arts of the chart. I'm so glad you have chosen to. And if you feel like you are receiving something, I invite you to leave something. Give a thumbs up to the video on YouTube here. It helps it get around, you know. Maybe leave a comment in the section below. And share with fellow seekers of the starry science. Until next time, this is your friendly astronaut Gemini Brett signing off. Love and planets to you. I will see you in space.